morning, everybody. It's really an honor to be here with you all. I recognize some people, but also there's a ton of new faces, so please introduce yourself. If any of this resonates with you, we'd love to continue to partner with people as we move forward. I'm extremely humbled to be here today. I grew up in Ann Arbor, and Treetown Murals, as you can tell, is kind of the namesake or the nickname for Ann Arbor. And so I really have decided to embody this art here in this community, but it has spread. So I'm going to take you through a bunch of projects. And I am joined today by Danijel, my husband and creative partner. We have a unique relationship in that we work, collaborate, and love each other. So those of you out there that have partners that you work or own a business with, we feel you, and it's really a joy. So happy to be here with you all. These are the two projects that Pete actually just remarked on. And these are two projects that Danijel and I did together. I'm going to take you behind the scenes a little bit after this slide, but I just want to give you a sense and a snapshot of where we are now in the kind of magnitude of the work that we want to do, the kind of splash that we want to give to different communities, different cities. And Ann Arbor, being my hometown, has definitely been graced with so many of these projects. So we're very proud of this work, very proud of the ability to welcome people to our community. I think it makes a big difference when you're a stranger and you're coming into a place to be like, okay, I'm meant to be here. So this is an important aspect of our work. So Pete did touch on just a little bit of my past. Accidentally came into, I was always arts driven. In 1998, we lobbied the Ann Arbor Railroad after a group of us were arrested for malicious destruction of property. So being kind of naive to how the process really works, we just jumped right in on one of the underpasses. We were making a mural, and we were arrested that evening. We decided not to run because honestly, we didn't feel like what we were doing was destructive. We were living in that neighborhood, and you can see here, and this is kind of like a before shot. So the Ann Arbor Railroad, it cuts through our community with 5 different overpasses. And you have the residential and then the city. So many people coming and going through these spaces, but they were just blighted for years. And we found out that it's private property. The Ann Arbor Railroad owned and managed these spaces, and we had not asked for permission, but we did find out that there was an immense amount of support for what we were doing, and so the charges were dropped. The railroad gave us permission to paint murals on all their underpasses in the late 90s, and with borrowed bucket paint, no budget, some very simple designs, a bunch of us hit the streets and gave Ann Arbor the first murals. You have just these spaces for graffiti, and tags are, I think, a valuable thing. If we can create areas like Graffiti Alley, or on Felt Street, there was a big graffiti meetup, and so you have a bunch of pieces. So there is a space for that art form. This is the first commission was at the Main Street underpass, and we received $8,000 to do this project. I'd never seen that much money before. This was before our fancy phone cameras. We went and bought a regular camera so that we could document it. So all of the pictures from that project are actually in a photo album somewhere. But I have some of those photos here. So that project on Main Street and getting that feeling of bringing art to the community, to the neighborhoods, just was contagious for me and for Ann Arbor, really. I was, just barely 20, but I had all of the city government, developers, people saying, hey, this is cool. I want more of this. How do I help you do this? So literally people just coming to me, putting projects in front of me, and I'm saying, yes, 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 let's do that. So this was an exciting project with Laura Rossello. This mural is no longer in this alley because of how damaged it became from the trucks. But these are all portraits of soldiers that fought in different wars, all from Michigan. So it's called our Veterans Mural. And it's on an aluminum panel, which was a new feature to do murals on panel and then install. Just to give you an idea, the schools started hearing about this. And you see a lot of art in schools, but not a lot of people have the time to facilitate it. So I was starting to be brought into schools to facilitate school-wide kind of paint by shape or paint by number.
It's still in the cafeteria.
Heck yeah. So a lot of these projects are still there. Friends of mine, I had never done any business signage. I had never blown up an image that big on a building. And so you're just learning as you go. So I think that's a big part of the Blossom aspect, is just how do you take these challenges and keep rolling with it. When Danijel and I started working together, in my eyes, everything changed. With his expertise and his illustration and his just beautiful design sense, personally, I feel like this took our art and our creativity to the next level. We got a commission with Ann Arbor Google. Now, this is not visible to the public. It is on their Ann Arbor campus, but we were super proud of this opportunity. We we went into their big boardroom with all their executives, kind of Madman style, and threw out these sketches that Danijel had done, and this is the one that they landed on, and this was an incredible project to do with Google. Jerusalem Garden, Orbital Effects, McKinley Corporate, and then here working with our first municipality project with the City of Ann Arbor at Rolling Hills Water Park. The Museum of Natural History went through a big overhaul. We applied for this commission. It was an RFP, a request for proposals, and we received it. The mural shows the Huron River, both underground and above, all the natural flora and fauna. There's probably 2,562,000 blades of grass in that mural. If you have not seen it, I highly recommend going and checking it out. This is definitely one of our most detailed works of art. It's an educational piece. This was the desire of the natural history was to create a work that people could help. So we call this kind of river camo. And you can see here how we set up our events with maybe 10 to 15 colors. We had 500 people, all members of the Museum of Natural History, come and fill an area, which then we use as underpainting. So a lot of people question, how do you get so many people involved and still have it look professional? Well, that's something we've been able to achieve, is allowing people to kind of put their time into it, but then Danijel and I finish. So, but people still say, I did that, that's my mural. So that connectivity with the entire community of the Natural History Museum just brought so much more value to the project. It brought more value to the museum, and it's a piece that they're extremely proud of. It's in their community room if you haven't been to the new museum. So the work just kept expanding. This is a slide of a number of different schools we've worked with throughout Washtenaw County, in Ypsilanti and in Ann Arbor. Celine, there's your Dickon mural. Wines, Mitchell Elementary, and you can see the smiles on these kids' faces they're not posing. They are so engaged. Some of them don't want to leave. Some of them want to finish the projects with us. They will come back to that school and show their kids what they worked on. It just, the giving that these projects do beyond us finishing them, we won't even know, the ripple effect of how exciting it can be for people to participate in something that is larger than themselves. This is an example of work that we were doing in the high schools. So if you are familiar with Community High School or Clegg, Huron, Skyline, these are a few examples of work that students have been involved in. And when you get up to that level in high school, it's really an opportunity to involve them in the entire process. Some of these youth that I've met, some of them work with us to this day. They maybe were teenagers and now they're in their 20s and they're full-time assistants or helpers with tree town murals and brush monkeys. So the ability to retain young artists and work with them has been a big focus and joy of ours, honestly. It keeps the designs fresh, keeps us fresh, and it really just, it adds a lightness to the project that you wouldn't get if you didn't have that youth idea, that youth experience coming with you. So kind of taking that a next step further, Treetown Murals started to organize internship programs because I truly believe that artists need to be paid for their work, especially young people, seeing that art is a valuable resource for them. It can be something lucrative for them. And it's certainly not just about making money. And so the kind of pairing that skill, learning skills, learning budgeting, learning the preparation, all the project, how do you ask for permission? So that was a big part of being arrested, is learning all the correct channels for doing these projects. And really we've become consultants to so many other people now trying to do this, because there is a way to do it correctly so that people feel included. And it blows my mind the variety of work that comes to you when you say yes, or when you bring it in, or when you accept that that is the direction you want to take. I love this kind of artifact here. I don't know if you guys remember newspapers. But before MLive or the Ann Arbor News closed, I mean, I have scrapbooks of articles, and I miss that. I just love that physical newsprint, the photographers, meeting the journalists, getting that fresh newspaper, seeing you're in it. And I mean, it's just the best feeling in the world. That was really the impetus for the word getting out, was the newspaper. The website for Treetown Murals really didn't show up until the early 2000s. And even then, that wasn't necessarily a landing page for people. The artwork always speaks for itself. There is literally no advertising that Daniel and I have to do. The work advertises itself, and I truly believe that that is one of the ways that we have received so many inquiries, is because you see a project, you see who made it, and then you have an idea. So without even realizing it, we have become this kind of conduit, this like, we have an idea, we're an organization, how do we bridge that and actually make it happen? So we've become this kind of in-between for people that want to express their local community. So this is in Jonesville. Kind of accidentally got very popular in the Hillsdale County. In 2011, I was commissioned to do a mural there that we've now since done 5 or 6 projects. We actually just installed an 80-foot mural for the county fair. If you want to check out our Instagram, I just did a reel. I don't know if you guys make reels, but it took me 3 days. I'm sorry. I don't have time for this. Please. This was a really exciting project with the Ann Arbor Arts Center, Larry and Lucy Nissen, and the entire neighborhood of the Eber White school area. This is the first painted roundabout in Ann Arbor. Truthfully, we had an entire product fail, and I just want you to know that that is part of this process, is learning all of these different surfaces. I accidentally have become a novice expert on brick, wood, aluminum. That's pocketing and delaminating. You really we need to do panels on that one. So the aluminum panel I learned about when I was researching murals, because I was determined to be a muralist. I started going to Canada to these mural conferences, Mural Roots. Canada has an amazing mural arts program. So keep in mind, when all of this was starting for me in the early 2000s, people were like murals. Like, they just really didn't have this like connection to what it could do. I mean, certainly sign painters and letterheads and artists have definitely, I mean, mural art is humanity's first stamp on a wall, handprints in the caves. This is our I was here kind of activity, and it has really just come into the murals have really, I mean, as you can see, they're a lower cost, semi-permanent, amazing way to bring people together and to express a community or a school's identity. This is a nonprofit that we worked with, and you know, sometimes you have to go through 6, 7 designs before you nail it, and that can be very frustrating. I imagine a lot of you in the room here know what it's like to take a commission, to put yourself out there and to say, no, that's not correct. You know, like, you need to do that. That's not what we had in mind. And some people don't know what they had in mind until they see what you did or what you've designed. So there is an element of patience and a lot of work. I mean, Daniel spends hours and hours designing, and we spend time just trying to nail it. And then when we do nail it, and then when the project is finished, it's a total celebration. So that kind of wraps up the Treetown murals. We have also inherited this incredible company called Brush Monkeys. It was originally called Novemberistas. John Copley, one of our mentors, who's in his 70s, was painting windows on Main Street for the Main Street Area Association, and Daniel and I started assisting him around 2010. And he's like, look, Mary, you know how to organize things. He had a sheet of paper with phone numbers and addresses. He's like, here's my book. You guys take this over. So we digitized everything. We rebranded as Brush Monkeys, and we started to find other artists that wanted to collaborate with us. And we grew that company from 30 storefronts on Main Street. I think last year we did 157 across southeastern Michigan, and then we come up to mid-Michigan now. We bring the entire crew up to Midland, and it's kind of its own beast. It's very similar to murals in the sense that we put the art up, we leave, but people see it for months and months and what it brings to these downtown spaces. Often showing, this is at a pet store, you know, they're humorous, they're cute, they're decorative, they're elegant. I mean, it really is like, what are you selling? What are you trying to pull off? We want to accentuate that in a beautiful way. So not only is this now a winter thing, but it is year-round. There are a rotating cast of 10 artists that work with us, and this is this is kind of like our incubator for meeting artists. As we bring them in, we watch them freeze and see if they can still make a brush stroke, and if they can, then they're hired. But we really do, we call ourselves hobo painters. We look like bums on the street. We've got like sewn patches on our back and, I don't know, 25 layers. It is just really like kind of a wild time. And here are some of our friends up here. I mean, it really is like, we have storefronts that have kept the art up for years. So we've found a really high quality acrylic that works great on the glass. And so if businesses do want to keep these things up year round or for years, they can. And this is the final slide for today's talk. And Daniel and I will be available. We'd love to hear some questions from you all. But just another few examples. We've actually, the Grayson project that we did in Detroit was very intimidating, but this is the 4th year we've done their storefronts, and it really just, those tall windows, it just brings kind of a vitality to that Woodward area. Lots of different artists, lots of different skills, and the artists that really resonate with this often stick around and can develop their skills and talents. So I feel like these two companies are bigger than Danijel and I in a lot of ways. They've not only are they kind of a voice for other entities, for other organizations to show off what it is they do or a message that they want to give to the community. It's just a beautiful way for artists to come together and collaborate. We paint on each other's paint. We allow for critique and criticism, and so it just keeps you fresh, and it's just a very exciting life. So that concludes my talk. I really appreciate you all coming out. I think we should do creative evenings because Danijel and I, we don't get up very well at 6 a.m., especially when we were up till midnight working on a project. So I thank you all for coming and being here this morning with us. We have fuzzy chairs.
We have fuzzy chairs, so we have two people. We're going to have both of you taking Q&A, so I'll give this one to you.
Ask Danijel some questions.
How does the initial creative process and dealing with clients differ for the Brush Monkeys projects that are more temporary? You know, you're doing 150 in whatever 3 months, kind of. You know, you can't probably invest as much. You still want, high quality product, and they have the vision probably in their heads. So how does that interaction and process differ for creative heroes?
So depends on the client. So some clients they just believe, trust us to do whatever you want, and some of them will give a little bit of information what they would like to see. Some of them have more fleshed out ideas what they would like to see. So it's client to client basis. We kind of figure it out. Also, our crew of painters and when we gather in the morning and we know what we're supposed to do, we'll have a chat over coffee, come up with all kinds of silly and crazy ideas, and then kind of try to figure out what would work out. So it's kind of, on the spot, figuring out most of the time.
It's an intense process, communicating with that many people. We're really trying to streamline that kind of so we understand what people want, but there is a hope that they will have an open mind, right? We've had to come back and scrape things because people that's not what I expected, but that does not happen often. So, but yeah, it's kind of, it's turbo style commissioning.
Could you speak a little bit to the business operations side? I'm a creative myself, but I'm running small businesses and responsible for financial health and managing the team and the people and the operational expenses. I'm just wondering if you could speak a little bit to what goes on behind the scenes to keep this awesome work up that you guys are doing.
Yeah, thanks, Ty. Well, that's where the partnership between Danijel and I is really valuable. I handle all of the admin and am a painter out in the field. Danijel is handling all of the creative. So we think tank ideas together, we sketch together, but then Danijel really takes it and brings it to life with his background in understanding digital media. I used to do sketches and then have to bring in, what is it called, tracing paper? Yeah. If you had to make like a change, you'd have to redo the whole design. I wasn't trained in Photoshop, but this man was. So that aspect, the divide and conquer, there's a ton of office hours. I think a few years ago, I started to learn how to ask for help. So now some of the young artists that we work with, we're moving into other roles. I'm trying people out, but as many of you know that run your own businesses, it's very hard to let go of certain aspects of your company. And so that's where I need help. I need help just trusting that other people can help elevate your company with the same mindset, because it's a ton. It's a ton of admin, and I really enjoy it. So then that clicks, right?
Are there any tools or softwares or anything that you guys are finding very lucrative to support that effectiveness and efficiency of the business?
Yeah, so invoicing with FreshBooks, keeping a good idea of, you know, how the hours that other artists are working, or you just good documentation. My Google Drive, my Google account is almost at its max again, so it's like, all right, who am I going to pay for the rest of my life in order to be able to run my business? I mean, I'm always looking for new tools to use, honestly. I very much put things together, but when we started working with actual accounting software, that to me like took our business to a level of professionalism that other people could relate to. So other than, you know, the simple tools that were allotted from these office spaces in our Google or Microsoft or whatever, really, if any of you have suggestions, please, or want to help organize my company, or yeah.
No, I think the first will help you, like, you know, free up more of your time to do the creative part, because the business part can sometimes kind of strangle you, you know, in the process of trying to do something very creatively, and all of a sudden you have this whole bureaucratic stuff that you got to deal with, and by the end of the day, you feel drained to actually, you know, be creative and kind of let go. You know?
Yeah.
How do you stay creative with so many projects, like with burnout?
Oh my gosh. I mean, it's real. Burnout is real. I mean, we support each other in that way. Like, and you know, right now we're working on designs for the Main Street underpass, and it's such a big work of art that so many hundreds of thousands of people are going to see. I mean, no pressure, right? Like, so we do get to a space where we're like, that's not going to work. That's not going to work. And then you've got these deadlines, right? And so working with clients, working with people that understand that the creative process is fluid and that you don't want to rush artists. You don't want to rush that creative process. And so how do you explain that to people that don't think that way? And it's important to know your own limits, your own limitations. So we get a lot of inquiries. We have a lot of project ideas being thrown at us at all times. And so this is where that team of artists that we've developed, that we have attracted around us. Would you like this job? I think this actually fits really well with you. Would you like to do the design work for this job? I think you could really handle it. So we've started to outsource more projects, maybe oversee them, but let other people take the lead. So what is that, like a dispatch? You know, you're getting art ideas, we can't handle it, so we're passing it off to other artists.
Yeah, and about like staying fresh with creativity, like you're gonna make grades. So once we're done with like a major project, I don't really feel celebratory. Once I'm done with it, I need like a week to just don't look at it, because you get so like overstimulated in that period, and you just need like a moment to, you know, go in nature, take hikes, go summer camp, or whatever, like, and then coming back to it, it feels really good to like look at what you achieved, like with fresh eyes, kind of like after you had some rest to it, and also like trying to not overwork yourself. When it comes to creative ideas and designs, as you mentioned, the first idea you get, the first sketch, the first drawing is never going to be the best one. Like, so usually, like, if you're trying to create something fun, I would generally start with like 10 sketches or large amount of sketches. Then you put them in front of you, start thinking about like what angle to take, or maybe to make a combo between, you know, there's maybe a great idea in this one, or composition is really good here, but whatever. So eventually you kind of compile it and then start working on a more developed version of what it is. And that sometimes won't work. Maybe the clients will be like, I don't like that. And you know, it can push you back to the drawing board, or you can like make some adjustments to you know, make it work.
You had a question. I heard, sorry.
Yeah, so I would like you to speak more to, I'd like to hear more about working large, working at scale. What are the challenges? What's the excitement about it? What are some of the technical aspects of working?
Well, it gives you more space to, you know, like larger strokes. You know, to make a mistake, larger mistake, or yeah, it's fun. Like when you're working like in the beginning phase of like designing usually, I don't know how big your sketchbook is. I like to use traditional media when I'm working. In the beginning phase, the sketching and everything, still using like a regular pencil and paper, and even watercolor and what have you, and then like kind of taking it later into one of the digital programs, depending what device I'm using to further it out. But once you get to the large scale, it feels there's like this freedom that you can let yourself go, like you were like sketching, you know, in a tiny surface in a tiny area, and all of a sudden you have this large scale. It's really like it's liberating. It feels like you can throw a large stroke with my whole body and get into it, and that makes it fun and enjoyable for me.
That's the part that requires a little bit of mathing.
Right.
So taking really good measurements, we've taken horrible measurements before, designed something, gotten to the scale up portion, and we're just like, there's like an extra 15 feet over here. So yeah, the meticulous of planning it. We use projectors, we use VR now to transfer designs. There's a lot of different techniques that muralists are using to scale up your design. You've probably seen these doodle techniques coming out, but last night we were using a projector, and so you just have to wait till after dark. You have to have high lumen, technology. But we just started using the VR setup for smaller, more detailed works, and we're really enjoying these programs. I think it's called Contour. It has some limitations, but we've been able to work with it.
Like 10 by 10 feet size, and after that it gets like undersized. So, but it's good for like getting detail or working on a smaller scale, just for transferring. Because then that can be very time consuming if you're doing a grid. The traditional approach, it may take you like a lot of time, and if you're renting a lift, it costs you $500 a day, and you're doing a grid for like 5-6 days, and you could just project it in like a couple of hours. Like financially it doesn't make sense. I like doing everything traditional way. Like I went to a school where they took us to the traditional aspects of drawing and painting like very seriously, and then like introduced us to a newer media. So, but I like to keep that stuff in. But if it's not viable financially or just practically, we'll try to find a way to do it, quicker and save us some time, probably if possible.
I saw a hand up back here. Yeah.
I heard you saying a lot that you've been receiving requests and like you have clients, but you have this so fiery, free, rebellious spirit. So I'm just wondering, what is your dream? What do you want to put your hands on next? Like, what do you want to go and say? Like, hey, we want to do this.
Yeah, that's a really fun question. Daniel and I talk about starting a school or a creative institution where we can train artists and potentially keeping the theme of. Yeah, cool. Love that. We bought a place in the forest. We live in the woods now, and we have extra property, and so we envision. We love sharing and spending time with other creatives and teaching young people how to build a practice, because I do feel like creativity is and the arts is so integrated and should be integrated into our everyday life. There's some physical limitations to doing murals. It's very hard work. I mean, it's the kind of, you don't even realize it until you finish the day and you're just absolutely drained. Imagine working in July outside all in the hot sun, So it feels very blue collar, and I have an affinity for people that work really hard and come home very dirty. So yeah, the next step, I'm literally doing so much more visioning for that now, because I'm approaching 50, and what do you do? I'll probably never retire. We don't have 401ks. What is that? It's like, so but I know I don't live in that mindset. We love our life. We build in rest. We build in, we're not up at 6 in the morning if we don't want to be. So.
Yeah, we take the weekend and like Wednesday and Thursday sometimes.
Right. We'll kind of shift, So thank you for that question.
Yeah, well, I have a 7-month baby, so we're enrolling her very soon.
Oh, yes. Yeah, I love that. I can't wait. Brush monkey. We'll make some onesies. Future brush monkey.
I also think that teaching is way to go as you get older. You accumulate this large amount of experience and knowledge, and you're kind of, not physically anymore like capable of like holding tons of scaffoldings and buckets and climbing and getting up and down and roasting in the sun and all that stuff. So you want to share all that with the newer generation. And through the Brush Monkeys, we actually kind of meet the young artists from their area, and a bunch of them are really good, really talented, and motivated. They want to learn, they want to achieve, and we kind of use the Brush Monkeys to a degree to train them in our ways, and then bring them into Treetop Murals, give them larger opportunities with some murals, and you give them like guidance, but then still let them be on their own and kind of be in charge of it. So I like that approach. It's really fun. I like working with younger generations, and it's fun and enjoyable to share all that. And we look forward to that.
How are we doing on time, Liz?
Okay, maybe one last question.
Hi.
Hey. As your projects got bigger and the budgets got bigger, how did you handle financing and fundraising and all that?
Yeah, it's a great question. So we're all feeling the heat right now with the state of Michigan trying to zero out arts funding. I mean, it's pretty devastating. A lot of our projects, especially for partnering with schools or nonprofits, they're receiving grants from the Michigan Arts and Council Culture. They're relying on their foundational support. We've been also very blessed to work with private donors like Larry and Lucy, where you're not held to the restraints of a school or municipality needing certain things, so it gives a lot more freedom when you can work with independent funders. So we can coach people on how to write grants, and sometimes projects are about planting seeds. We'll have a conversation, we'll come up with some tangible goals, but then we won't actually execute the mural until a year or 2 years later. So we understand that this process takes time, and some people don't. Some people want something in 3 months, or they want, and you just have to. So the money comes from all different sources, and thankfully, even during the pandemic, Daniel and I stayed busy, and I think that just shows the support for the arts in Michigan, but also in Washtenaw County especially, beyond what people are getting from grants or PTOs. Does that help, Allison?
Yeah, I guess when you're approaching projects, people often think that it's going to cost way less than it's going to still, or do you think that people are understanding that art doesn't just happen on them?
I think it depends. People see dollar signs very differently. They think the quality of something should cost more, or they think everything should come to them at a discounted rate. So you kind of have to know your client. You have to know what their challenges are for finding the money, and then we can scale up or down the project. And we do that a lot. And that the flexibility of making something huge versus a little smaller really comes in handy a lot. Or we simplify the design. We're not doing 1,200 portraits. We're just keeping things kind of loose and light and playful. So we really value working with each client individually on what they can afford, what the outcome then could be. Yeah. And we've had to, a lot of projects have collapsed because of funding. So I learned early on to always take a deposit. I did a lot of designing for free at the beginning. A lot of just giving myself, giving, and thinking that was part of it, right? You gotta hustle harder in order to win the commission, and you have to understand your value. And if they don't, then you don't wanna partner with those people. So it took me time. It took a lot of time to figure out what my value was, and then also what my time is worth. You guys have been awesome. Really, really awesome. Thank you so much.